Okay, we're recording. Good morning, Matt Atkinson.
Morning, Pastor Jane.
I'm Pastor Jane Spriggs, and we are here this morning on a cloudy Midwestern Minnesota day in April for the first episode of the Quarantine Chronicles. And for the first episode, I couldn't think of anyone better to address a few things that are going on right now than Dr. Matt. Dr. Matt and I have known each other more than 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
And first of all, tell us about yourself.
Okay.
Who are you?
Who am I? Way back. So, Matt Atkinson. I have a PhD in physics that I got at University of Waterloo in Canada. And 25 years ago, we moved to beautiful upper Midwest Minnesota. Say that so in case you hear my accent, you really did hear it. I'm an industrial physicist working in a big corporate lab. And that's the technical side. Have a family, 3 grown children.
And a wife and some dogs.
Yes.
And so a shout out to our friends in Canada. If they hear, your accent's small, but it's there.
It will never go away, I'm sure.
And Canadians are saying, yes, of course. Well, okay, so you are an industrial physicist, and that means you've got some education in physics and a PhD in physics.
Yeah.
And so you're a scientist. And so we've got a pandemic going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to say about the coronavirus, COVID-19, from your perspective as a scientist?
Okay, so I'll preface this, of course, saying I'm not a biologist, epidemiologist, any of that, but I do know mathematical models because they're very familiar with, in physics, everything we do is that. So when you hear the epidemiologists say that every person who is they're not showing symptoms yet, but they're contagious for 5 days. And in those 5 days, they could infect on average 3 more people. And then in that time, 3 more and 3 more and 3 more. That's an exponential growth. And by being able to self-isolate, if we reduce that to, each person infects less than 1 person, or even 1 person, that spreads out. Because without that, with the 3 people every 5 days, it just takes off and you see the great big curve. And soon that would overwhelm the medical facilities that we have right now.
Sure.
If we're able to spread it out, then we give, first of all, more time to build up these makeshift hospitals that they're talking about, more time for people to build respirators and powered air purifiers and the masks to protect the medical staff and the people in the infrastructure who are keeping everything going right now. And it gives more time for the vaccine and all the medical research to do. So it's not good enough to say, oh, everyone's going to get it. It's if we can stretch it out, then we're more prepared for it. And that, let's say, that comes just from the math of it all.
I like the way you said that because I've seen the curves and we've all heard the words flattening the curve. But when you say that 1 person in that 5 days infects this many, this many, this many, this many, that explains the big jump in the curve compared to isolating. So this quarantine that we are under is for a real good reason.
Yes, it is.
And we're smart to stay home even though we don't want to. Our church would like to be together. For example, I'm a pastor of Monticello Covenant Church in Monticello, Minnesota. We'd like to be together for Palm Sunday and Easter, but we're not going to be together because of that. And I can't wait till we can get together again and do a celebration sometimes in the future. But until then, we need to stay quarantined.
Yes. There's a local pastor down here in the Twin Cities who sent out a broadcast email saying, we're not meeting, but it's not because of fear, it's because of wisdom.
Yes.
God gave us brains, and obviously, if we can do something to help other people,
Yeah.
survive, then we do it. We're not self-isolating out of fear.
Right.
It's wisdom
Right.
that we're doing this.
That's good. I like that. Well, we're talking to you today because you are a scientist, but you also care deeply about mental health issues. And this is a
Yes.
really kind of scary time that we're in, where our routines have changed.
Mm-hmm.
If we're at home, and some parents are homeschooling when they never thought they'd be homeschooling their kids, everything's been turned upside down, and we don't know how long it's going to last for. And so here we are in the midst of this. And can you tell me a little bit about why you care about this from a mental health standpoint?
Okay. I'll go back, let's say, to I've always struggled. It got bad in college, which is coming on 35 years ago now. And I always thought that I was struggling with mental health issues, but the stigma around being labeled with having, being mentally ill, mental problems, kept me from seeking help. So I thought for all this time I would manage on my own. Then a couple of years ago, I had a concussion, and as part of the screening of the rehab, I did all these tests, and they said, okay, you need to do this for the concussion, this and this. Oh, and by the way, you have depression and anxiety.
Wow.
And it's like, and I was waiting for, the condemnation, but the doctor just said, and okay, this is how we're going to start treating this. It's, the concussion is one thing, but your depression is something else that we have to handle. And that was the first time I had a medical professional help me with this. So I got on some meds, and after I recovered, I was amazed that, like, is this how normal people feel? This is amazing.
Wow.
So I realized, okay, I know you're a pastor, so I won't swear, but this
You can swear.
this stigma that kept me from seeking help had me suffering for 35 years when help was available. So I'm not willing to go and say, okay, I'm living with depression and anxiety, and honestly, for the love of God, reach out and get help, because people want to help you.
Yeah.
God doesn't want you to suffer in silence when there's smart people He's equipped who can train you. And I had absorbed this message growing up that mental illness was like depression. Depression was, I just didn't have enough faith.
Wow.
Oh, imagine sitting there already feeling bad, and then you're hearing this from the pulpit and from the community. So I want to say clearly, okay, where does it say that? Depression is not a sin. It's not a character flaw. It's not a moral weakness or anything like that. It has 4 causes. There's a biochemical component, there's a social component, environmental component, historical, genetic. That's more than 4. There's all sorts of components. It's not a choice people do.
Right.
Paul said, don't be anxious about anything, but in prayer, take everything to God. He didn't say, you sinner, you're anxious, and come down on someone. He said, okay, yes, I acknowledge that you can be anxious, and here is a path what you can do with it. He didn't cast it as a sin. He cast it as, it's just can be part of the brokenness. And we know there's physical and relational, all this brokenness that God is trying to redeem.
Yeah.
And for people to, with mental illness, to withdraw and get a different message keeps healing from entering that situation. So that's a long way of saying, I don't want, what I said, I don't want anyone to suffer one more day, because I know what 35 years of trying to keep it together was. And I'm like, no, there are people whose job it is to help. They can be the medical professionals, counselors, pastors, friends, your support group, your family. People love people and want to help them. So there's no reason to, no reason. Forget the stigma. There is no stigma. Okay?
Good. I like that.
Get help.
I like that.
Get help.
Yeah. And I struggled with anxiety from early childhood.
Hmm.
And it's a family deal. I mean, like you said, there's many components. And I remember one of my aunts, we always had to take the elevator when we went shopping because she wouldn't go up escalators. And then there was this person wouldn't do this and this person. And my mom, before we left the house, would have to go back in and check the stove and make sure that the stove was not on. And there were certain things that happen. And so there's this family thing. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I remember the first time I had a panic attack. I was out to eat with my parents, and it was, of course, terrifying because you think you're going to die. And of course, I'd internalized all this, that there's something wrong with me. And it took me a long time in my 30s, really, to start to deal with this, and got some good counseling from a really wise person, and for years did some really intense work on that. And now I have a small amount of antidepressant that I take that is really helpful for sleeping and for some of the thoughts that you get in the middle of the night when you're doing anxious stuff.
Yeah.
But my journey is different than you, but similar to you in that this anxiety was here, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And then when I became a person of faith, I thought there was something wrong with my faith, that it wasn't adequate. So I'm with you in that there is so much help and healing that's available. And my hope is that people will be whole in body, mind, and spirit. And so that's part of why we're talking about this today, because this is a time right now with the quarantine and pandemic that anxiety issues and depression issues can just kind of get wild. How do you think people, the quarantine, the pandemic is affecting people with anxiety and depression?
I see it a couple of ways. First of all, everyone's regular routines are disrupted. So that can cause a certain level of anxiety. And then uncertainty about, is this social distancing going to be 2 weeks, or is it going to be, some people have said ridiculous amounts of time that I'm not going to repeat because no, that's not helpful. So then there's uncertainty about the future, how long this is going to take. And then maybe there's uncertainty about their own health. Because I've been going through this wicked sinus infection, and it's just been this week. And at the beginning, I'm like, oh, is this the onset of something? It's like, so you have that, you start to feel every ache and pain. Oh, is that a dry cough? Yes. And that just ratchets up your anxiety also. And cable news does not help. Okay, number one, I'll jump the gun. Number one, turn off the cable news. Turn off cable news and turn off cable news, because they exist to get you to watch them. And to do that, they get this feeling of panic that you can't miss a single minute of what they say, and they have flashing scenes and this and that and the other. And all they're doing is ratcheting up everyone's anxiety. And you don't need it. They're working against our mental health. Okay, if someone may sue me, but no, I won't name which networks, but
right, we're not.
Cable news networks aren't helping your mental health. So if you need facts, I watch the local news 6 o'clock every day, because that has all I need to know. Sometimes if Governor Walz is on, I'll listen to him. Yeah. But the 6 o'clock news just condenses what he said. The good thing about the local news then is then they turn around and say, but look at what people are doing to support each other. Look how we're coming together. And they always call out the best. It's not doom and gloom. They're saying, okay, this situation is real, but look how people are responding. And that gives me hope.
Yes. Yes, I think we all need hope right now.
Yeah.
And speaking of hope and a person of faith, you talked a little bit about your faith already. A question that people are asking now is, where is God in all of this, in this epidemic, in this pandemic, in this scary time? What do you say to a question like that? Where is God in all of this?
I'd say that God is where God has always been, and that's with each one of us in this situation. Jesus said, "Never will I will never forsake you or leave you. I will be with you always, even to the end of the age." The passage Paul wrote in Romans 8. I like this. I wanted to get this as a tattoo, but I think it's a bit long for a tattoo. But Paul says, "For I am convinced," and I love the word convinced. It's not, well, I have this feeling, or, I'm sort of in the flow of this. No, I'm convinced. It's a whole mind, body, soul thing. This is a stake in the ground. I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Even if we don't feel it because of anxiety or depression, God is still with us. The Holy Spirit is still with us. Depression is a liar. Anxiety is a liar. Other bipolar disorder is a liar. Schizophrenia is a liar. All these things, these mental health issues, it's their nature to turn you away from what is real. Mm. And I'm saying this not as again, I'm not a licensed counselor in mental health issues or social worker or any of that, but that doesn't, I have first person experience of this. So depression is a liar, anxiety is a liar. God is with us. God is not leaving us through any of this. God wants us to turn to him because he can give us peace. What did Paul say? Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, take it to prayer, and the peace of God that transcends understanding will guard your hearts and minds.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that guard your mind part. Plus, yeah. Guard your heart. It's not denying that something will make you anxious. This is not denial. This is not saying, oh, everything's fine, no worries. So I'm young. That's only other people have to be worried about that. It's not denial, but it's not panic. God doesn't want us in either denial or panic. But reality is, this is going on. Reality is people will be anxious. The first thing he says about anxiety is, okay, let's work this out together. That's my translation. I have a translation of the Bible in my own words.
Yeah, the Matt Atkinson translation. That's cool. A couple things I thought of when you were talking is there's a song by Zach Williams, "Fear is a Liar." Have you heard that song? It's really powerful, and I sense everything you just said. It just agrees with all of that. Another thought I had is I love when people come to me and want to talk. That's a lot of what I do as a pastor, is listen to people. And if they want to explore this and are really wanting to talk about this, I'd love to talk to them online or whatever. But for long-term therapy, if say we were not quarantined and I would be seeing people in my office, I would see them a few times. There are people that I know that I see once a year or something, but I don't do therapy because as a pastor, I'm a pastoral counselor. That means I find out how they are, and then I refer them to the right folks and I have relationships with people that I know that I can refer. I can help them find, the kind of person that they need. And I want to listen to them and just say what you said, is that there's nothing wrong with your faith. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have a moral issue.
Right.
There's not a sin issue. You have an issue that is hard, and there's help available for being whole. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that you're saying what I think is true too, is that God's with us and sad with us when folks are dying of COVID-19. And I get pretty angry when I see people of faith saying things that aren't true. And again, I won't go into specific people or specific things, but I really appreciate us kind of landing on the fact that God is with us in the middle of this. Yeah. And you said something about anxiety and faith a little bit ago, but I wanted to just clarify. How do you think anxiety affects our faith?
I think it can have a couple of outcomes. One is, like I said in that passage, it could drive us, make us turn to God, or it could distract us so much that we just forget. Especially, when we're not going to church and everything is disrupted, we could just forget. Oh, I haven't, read the Bible in 3 weeks, so I haven't done this. Just because everything else is going on, your whole routine gets messed up. And unfortunately, I think some people, unfortunately, may use this as saying, well, God doesn't love us or something like that. So I could see it playing out different ways. And what I would say to the people who are questioning God's love through all this is, no, I forget who, I should have had all these passages written out, but Jesus went through, he's experienced all our failings and pains and suffering himself. He knows what it's like, and he has sympathy because it's deeper than that. But he has compassion upon us because he knows what we're going through. So he's, I look at the COVID-19, it's another sign of just the brokenness of this world. There's brokenness, and some of it is like these viruses. But there's also beauty. I don't want to say, the world is broken, batten the hatches and wait for the rapture. But I'm saying there's beauty too, but we have them together. They're mixed. It's brokenness and beauty together. And we have to know how to hold this in tension. It's both and.
Holding that intention is part of the growth, I think, that we come into with emotional maturity and spiritual maturity, is holding that. Rather than saying your faith is weak, if you just believed, we could be having church and God would protect us, or you wouldn't be sick if you just could pray more. Instead of that, going to the place of saying it's a hard time and it's okay to feel sad. I mean, there's sadness that's not depression, that sometimes we don't allow ourselves to feel because we think, well, I shouldn't allow myself to feel sad. I should just power myself through this, and to allow ourselves to grieve the fact that life is not the same as it was a month or two ago. It's okay to feel that, and it's okay to hold that brokenness and beauty at the same time. Hold that things aren't the way they should the way I want them to be, and the way that they should be, and someday it will be, but it's not right now. And I have to hold that tension.
And there are things you can do that help you hold that tension. Let me remind you, the psalmist wrote, God is close to the brokenhearted. Right? It doesn't say God blames the brokenhearted for not having enough faith. Where does it say that? God is close to the brokenhearted and comforts them. So that means that God is comforting. I mean, I'm just re-saying it over because it's so clear that it doesn't mean that if you're brokenhearted, you don't have enough faith, or if you're brokenhearted, you have some character flaw. No, acknowledge it, because when you acknowledge it, then God can do something with it, can heal you. In some adult classes I've had the opportunity to teach at church, I've taught that you can, you're not able to lie during a prayer. You can't be praying to God and then say, oh, I'm not going to pray about that, everything's fine. Because as soon as you deflect or you try to hide that from God, well, surely God knows what's in your heart. So if you pretend it's not there, then you're breaking this communication. If you don't take this anxiety and present it to God and be honest and say, okay, I'm anxious about this, how can he comfort you with something you're not acknowledging?
I think of the Beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit, for to theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are the poor in spirit, not shamed are the poor in spirit or criticized, but blessed are the poor in spirit. And I think everybody's poor in spirit right now, given what we're going through worldwide, not just in the United States. And so God calls us blessed right now because he's with us in the midst of this brokenness.
There's an author, Franciscan priest, Richard Rohr, that I read some of. And he said that two things can change us: great love and great pain.
Wow. Because
those are the times that we are most open to responding to God. And right now we're in the midst of both.
Yeah.
We're in suffering, but when we see the good that people around us are doing and the selflessness and the heroic efforts of the medical staff, medical researchers, and like I said, the truck drivers, the train engineers, everyone, the infrastructure workers who are keeping everything going, you see the great love also. Yeah. So this could be like a time, I mean, it's awful, but I like thinking, okay, everyone I talk to has the same idea. What is it going to be like on the other side of this? How are we going to be changed? And I think everybody I've talked to thinks people are going to be better on the other side of this.
Wow. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
And when I get a call from somebody in my church who says, or somebody I know who says, how can I help people? I can go to the grocery store. Is there somebody you know? And so I've connected some people with each other, somebody who needs groceries and somebody who can provide groceries. Something like that is so hopeful. Yeah. And like you said, there's pockets of that happening all over the place. I love the fact that museums are putting their works online. I was looking at pictures from the Louvre the other day, and I had not done that before. And I just heard that a certain playwright is putting a play on every Friday. Is going to be a new play, a Broadway play that you can watch for free. So, I mean, just the poets and the artists and the folks that we need to hear from who help us right now. I love that creativity. And I guess allowing ourselves to be creative during this time is a good thing.
Yes, it is.
But I love what you're saying is that if we choose to move towards each other in the midst of our pain, in whatever way we can, I guess you got to acknowledge the pain first and then move towards each other. The love is really cool. My kind of basic philosophy is, how can I encourage people to love God and love each other? And that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. How about some practical things that people can do to stay healthy and deal with anxiety in healthy ways? Now, I want to stress that this is for everybody, not for somebody. And we're not saying you have to say that you're anxious in terms of having a diagnosis or you need to see a doctor or a therapist. I'm saying for everybody, how can we stay healthy?
I have a couple of things that I have done, and then I can point you and the viewers to other places that have resources. But these are the things that I have done, and I see other people doing. So number one, I said, okay, turn off cable news. We got that one right. Number two, okay, acknowledge any anxiety you have. And if you're a person of prayer, take it to God. But I'd say, okay, even if you don't believe in God, acknowledge your anxiety, reach out to someone. Just don't be in denial about it, because you can't heal without that. Keep a schedule. Okay, all our schedules are turned upside down, and it'd be really easy to like drift through the days in anxiety. But if you keep a schedule, even if it's different than it was before, it brings this feeling of normalcy, and that you do still have control of your life, just in a different location, but you have control of your life. So part of that schedule, what I notice, for example, is if I don't keep a schedule, I stop shaving. And then so I have like I call it my depression beard. If my beard gets longer than this much, it's like, oh, I just slipped into. So keep up all your hygiene, keep a schedule, get outside at least once a day. Yep, take your dog if you have a dog. If not, if you go outside once a day and you walk around, think about doing it as a photo trip. Start looking at things, really seeing them and saying, you know, I could maybe record this as a photo, record that as a photo, start to build that creativity. Just document your walks.
Nice.
Because that gives you a feeling of something, even if you don't share it with someone. But you can put it on Instagram is free. Upload Instagram and say, you know, here was my walk today. I saw 3 wood ducks. Yay, that's great. Get outside at least once a day. Eat properly. Because it's easy to drift. So keep proper meals. Give yourself some treats, right? So yeah, indulge yourself in some treats too. Acknowledge that, yeah, okay, cinnamon buns make me feel good mid-morning. Okay, have a cinnamon bun. We may have, from what I've seen, okay, we had the early rush of certain foods not being available on the store shelves, but now what we're seeing is the supply chain is caught up. Yeah. And I think everybody who bought, sorry, my phone's doing something weird. Everybody who's bought like 6 months worth of pasta isn't buying pasta anymore. So now there's pasta available. Okay, so eat properly, read something. So right now I'm reading both a nonfiction, I'm reading a math book explaining the history of calculus. Okay, it's fun. It's a fun book actually, because it talks about the real people behind things. So that, and I'm reading a book about running, and a book by let's say a devotional book. So I'm doing that. Do something creative regularly. Now I know this can be a source of anxiety, because on the cable channel you see all these teaching networks are suddenly free, and you have more choices than at all possible, and that can give you anxiety about what do I do? Well, do something that you had an interest in before, and you can learn how to do it on YouTube, and it doesn't have to end up at the Walker Art Museum or anything like that, but it's an expression of your creativity. Our God is a creative God. We're made in God's image. We can express ourselves creatively, and it's, again, art for art's sake, but it also gives us a sense of, okay, I'm able to do something. I am not a victim of these circumstances. I can bring beauty into this world, and that's very important. If you're a believer, and you haven't done it before, I would suggest you look into something called Lectio Divina. That is, it's Latin for divine reading, and it simply means a way of sticking with a verse or a passage that means something to you, and not racing through, just sticking with it. Why is this sticking with me? Chewing it over. I know we have these, read through the Bible in a year. Okay, there's a season for that. But then there's a season saying, okay, I'm sticking with this one psalm for a couple of days. To meditate on that. I do a tactile, I call it tactile Lectio Divina. And it's great on so many levels. And it's all self-taught. So I taught myself, I didn't teach myself. I let the wonderful people on YouTube teach me calligraphy.
Wow.
And I set it aside as a Lenten practice a couple of years ago. I was going to just cut out 1 hour of TV a day and learn how to do calligraphy. Now, why this is meditative is when you're doing the letters, you're doing them so slowly and you're repeating the word and the phrase in your mind. So as you go, as I said earlier, you could write quickly, for I am convinced that neither death nor life, and it doesn't sink in. It's all just automatically your eyes to your fingers, not going through your brain. But if you go slowly and you think about every word as you're writing, for I am convinced, for I am convinced, it slows you down, and actually it's very calming. And well, I'm gonna show you an example, and this is, okay, I don't know if you can see. So this is the passage that I did earlier,
Wow.
and this is, you can do it with just paper and a pen, and it doesn't have to be this sort of script. It can be like longhand script. The idea is you don't write it in your regular hand because that's too fast. Slow down, do it, pick a passage. Might take you 20 minutes to write out a psalm, but you'll notice that for me that brings peace.
Wow.
So
no one can read my writing. I don't know.
that doesn't matter.
But you know what I've done is personalize a psalm. I'm thinking I need to go back to doing that. So for Jane is convinced that nothing in height or depth or length or width or would separate her from the love of God. Or when I'm really creative, I do poetry. And so what if I read that psalm for every day for a week and then decided, well, what does that mean? How could I put that in? One of my bucket list things is to learn how to do spoken word. That's one of my dreams. But in the meantime, a poem that maybe sounds like spoken word, it doesn't, but what does it mean? So the world around me is crazy. Life as I know it is over. When will it be changed? When will it be the same? What's going to happen? What can I lean on? What can I fall on? What can I believe right now? What's the truth? Is it true you love me? Is it true that nothing will bring me, nothing that's crazy, nothing that's scary, nothing that's deadly, nothing that's virus will scare me from you and will separate me from you, will take me from you, will break me from you, nothing of this will make me less loved by you, God, will make me less of yours. Amen. That'd be an example.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that would be an example of what would be to me. I can't do calligraphy. Bless your heart. That won't be in my future, but this would be the kind of thing that I could do. And musical people could write a song. Gardening people can go out and garden and repeat the words in their mind while they're gardening.
Yes.
Guys and girls who like to build things can be building something. I know there's an uptick on do-it-yourself kits, and even Legos among adults are really big right now. Yeah, they're huge. And so whatever that thing is, however, we're all so different. Mine's words, yours is letters. But it's our minds communicating, and somehow we're using both parts of our brain, I think, when we do this. But I have to be calm to be able to do what I just did with you. And I have no idea how that came out of me, but I have to be calm to be able to do that.
Yes.
If I'm anxious, I can't be creative.
No.
So what else do you think we can do? Any other ideas, or if you have anything more to say about what we were just talking about? Practical things that people can do?
One of the things is, my final thing, I noticed, I didn't do this intentionally, I just noticed it a week in, that I started listening to exclusively classical music, some opera, and electronic ambient music.
Okay.
Just calm music, because right now I don't need like hard driving rock and roll with this bass line and drums and everything that raises it. In fact, it stimulates the body. I'm already anxious about things. Calming music calms you. So my you can find, you know, streaming services or whatever. Minnesota, I think St. Paul Chamber Orchestra is putting its concerts on for free. Now, if it's not them, sorry, but someone in Minnesota is putting all their concerts online for free, it's a wonderful way to explore. So it's a matter of just surrounding yourself with the things that you take in can also make you more anxious or calmer. So like,
yeah, and we're so different. The kind of music that appeals to you, it might be something for somebody else. Some people, country music would be soothing for, would not be soothing for me, but it might be for someone else. Worship music for some people, classic rock for some people. That just is their lane, and it really relaxes them. But whatever that musical genre is, and like you said, there's lots of ways to stream music nowadays. My assistant is Hispanic, and so when we're in the office, I put on the Hispanic worship channel on Spotify or whatever, and all the songs are so beautiful. Not the ones that are translated from English and are the same as English worship songs, but our original Spanish worship songs all sound like love songs, and they're lush and instrumental, and they're so relaxing to listen to, and I can work. And it's just an interesting genre I never would have known before, except for she listens to it. And so when I listen to the music that Rosie likes, and I'm trying, someday I'm going to learn some Spanish, to listen to Spanish worship music, it's so beautiful. And so that would be a genre for me that is very, very relaxing. So anything else you have as a practical tip, and anything we can do to help with our anxiety during this quarantine time?
As a practical tip, just take care of yourself. That's it. Take care of yourself physically, emotionally, socially. I mean, they say social distancing. It's physical distancing, but it's socially can bring us together. So I don't like social distancing. Good. It's physical distancing.
That's good.
But socially, people are being more open and more honest about things now.
Yeah, so that's what I'm finding. That's good, because I think the scariest thing of all is being isolated. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely the scariest thing, more than all these other things. So you're right, that's a poor term. I know why they picked it, but we need to stay connected socially. Yeah. And self-care, I suppose I'm not supposed to work 12-hour days. I find myself, Matt, this is my confession, working more hours because I can. And I'm home and I don't have to go anywhere. And there's all these teleconferences that I can take. If I watch this one, I'll know exactly how to lead my church right, or I know exactly how to help people. And I've had to stop, just like, stopping obsessing or looking at the news, is I've had to stop looking at all these free podcasts that come out that have the answers for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we can
And
only do so much.
yeah, and I've had to set some boundaries because it's easy since I'm home to just keep working. And so,
Mhm.
because I find myself eating dinner later and later at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever later than that. And so that's my personal struggle, is to let go of that, which actually gets back to anxiety and perfectionism for me. I did it right. If I just did a little more, to let that go. So self-care can look like setting boundaries with work or
Mhm.
connecting with people,
Yeah.
calling somebody, Zooming with somebody, having a treat once in a while. Huh,
A
I
good
like
thing.
that.
Yes.
I
Cinnamon
like
buns.
that. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love a cinnamon bun, but for me, chocolate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, got a little stash. Is there any one last thing you'd like to say?
Courage. We we will get through this. We will be better for it. Even though it's tough now, I believe that people are changing in a good way because of this.
Wow, I like that. I like that a lot. Man, Atkinson, I don't know how to thank you for this last, I don't even know how long it's been because I haven't looked at my phone, but this last period of time that we've been talking on Zoom for episode 1 of the Quarantine Chronicles. I can't think of a better person that have been have spoken to people. And we will be putting this on YouTube when I figure out how to do that. And well, we'll give everybody the links for this, but thank you so much for being with us today, with me, and being so present, because it's not easy to be present to each other in these anxious times,
Yeah.
but you've been present. And if people have more questions, they can certainly contact me through the YouTube channel. I think there's ways to contact people, or jane.montycov@gmail.com is
Yeah.
my email address. So thank you, and I'm going to stop recording
Thank
right
you,
now.
Jane.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just going to hit the button. Stop. I'm going to stop recording.